everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Hearthstone Meta Hype. That's Ecore. I am VengaDragon, and we are chilling out with you guys. We're hyped. We got some interesting things to talk about today. We always do. Make sure that you get on over to Ecore's channel and check out the first segment of this. We try to get in sync where we both publish them at the same time. But you know what it is we just like to sleep
works.
late.
It sometimes doesn't.
we like to sleep late. We're chilling, you know, like we gotta keep it real. We need our rest sometimes, and it's just like it's hard to publish the videos at the same time. We don't know why, but that's just what it is.
Technical difficulties, man.
Yeah.
Accidentally selecting the wrong day for our posting thing. Oh, it's frustrating.
It is, but you know, we get it. We get it done, man. We get it out there. We've been churning out this show for almost like 8 months now, so I hope everybody enjoys these episodes. And today's topic is pretty interesting. It's something that we were thinking, you know, let's talk about the meta and how win rates are not necessarily mean that a deck is the best deck. So if a win rate is the highest, it's not the best deck. And that is kind of a weird thing. So the way that I'll phrase the question is that the win rate is an indicator that it's the best deck, but it doesn't mean that it's the best deck for the meta right now. What are your thoughts on that, Ecore?
I agree to some extent. I feel like if you look on a site like Hearthstone Replay, right, and you can adjust for you can adjust for the ranks that the pool is being taken from. And if a deck like Face Hunter is the top deck at bronze through gold, platinum, diamond through legend, and top 1000 legend, then I think that the stats, it's the best deck. But if it was like something's dominating in low ranks, and then in diamond it's something different, legend it's something different, and then top 1000 legend it's another something different, then that's more up in the air. But I think that the win rates are a pretty good indicator. Not perfect. Like I said, Priest being the 8th highest win rate class, I think that's not true. I think it's supposed to be a higher skill cap. So it's going to be a lower win rate just in general. But for the most part, I think that the win rates and statistics are right like 75% of the time, with some underlying variables being there sometimes.
Yeah. And the point that also on that is, say for example, like Demon Hunter, right? When there's like sometimes there's people that would say, oh, Demon Hunter is extremely easy to play. And I'm like, okay, so you go to play it, right? But you've never played the deck before, or you don't really play it often, right? It's not as easy as it may seem, because there is some ideas of how you might, have to, make your outcast cards, position them, and, mulligan correct, so there's just different skills that are required to play the deck. So I think sometimes some of the decks that you make can be easier to play, but as you get up in rank and it changes. Like it no longer does that easy deck necessarily win as often as you'd like. So what I'm saying is that the win rates on there are affected. Also, there's a number of people that don't play the decks well that are in those numbers, right? So to use
that's true.
Priest as an example, like you say, it's a high skill cap deck. It is a bunch of people that don't know how to play the deck properly. So, and I'll just throw my hand up. I was playing Menagerie Priest because I see, oh yeah, the win rate is very good against Face Hunter, so let me give it a try. And the Face Hunter still whacked me out in like 8 turns or something. So it's the first time I played it. But if you could practice the deck and learn how to do it, you could probably dominate Face Hunter with a Priest. So there you go. Like, do people want to invest that time into learning how to play the deck better? And maybe they don't, and then that affects the numbers. So Priest is a perfect example of you say number 8. I think it definitely should be.
It's the 8th highest win rate.
Yeah, it should be maybe
or
top
8th lowest.
Yeah.
It's 8th place. There we go. That's
8 out of 10, right? So
yeah,
it could be well within. It definitely is in with the top 5, right? And some may argue it could be in the top 3. So
yeah,
right. And that's one point on it. Now when we took the break, you were talking about something I think was pretty cool. Do you remember what that was? You want to just talk about that? Because I think it was kind of fit into this.
I was just saying, like, when a deck is super good at every rank, like, it makes sense if it's the top just in general.
Yeah.
And when you play a deck that's hard to play and you need to think about things like mulligans, right? It can be hard. But then there's this thing where I'm going to talk about League of Legends for a second, but trust me, there's a point to this. With the League of Legends, there's this thing called you one trick a champion. You play only that one champion, you learn the ins and outs of it, and once you learn the ins and outs of it, you can play it kind of on autopilot. And once you do that, you can start thinking about everything else that's going on the map. And in Hearthstone, it's very similar. If you can play Priest to the point where you can kind of play on autopilot, you can start thinking about what's going on or what your opponent's going to do. In some decks like aggro decks, Hunter, Shaman, Demon Hunter, it's easier to get to the point when you play on autopilot because they're simpler decks. There aren't as many decisions, and because of that, they're just inherently going to have higher win rates.
Right.
Because they're just, you can get to that point where you can think about what the opponent's doing. You can get to that autopilot point before decks like Priest or Warlock or Control Warrior and stuff like that.
Yeah. Let's use Space Hunter as an example. And I always forget the name of this card, but it's the one that just, I think it's 4 mana, do 4 damage or 3 damage to the opponent, the hero.
Knife Ender? The one that does 4 damage to each person?
Yeah, that one, Knife Ender, right?
Yeah.
See, it's kind of like the problem there is that there really is no decision to be made. If you're on turn 4, you're pretty much like, and it's like kind of your card that you could play. Like it's like one of, say,
you're just gonna play it.
You have to play it, right? It's always kind of playable.
It's just, okay.
So the decision to play that card is not as crucial to your success as holding back something in another class, right? It's like,
yeah,
I think it's about the decisions being crucial that make decks harder. And so it's like, just play that on and Knife Juggler or not Knife Ender or whatever, and just play it and boom, and you're done. Next decision. You don't have to worry about what the next turn is like. That's it. And I think that there's a lot of cards that are like that in some of the other archetypes that they must be played. It's like it's a no-brainer, right? So
yeah,
that's why Priest suffers because do you want to?
Priest is like, do I do this or do I do that or do I do this? Whereas like Hunter, like, well, it's turn 5 and I have the Trampling Rhino in my hand.
Yeah.
Wonder when I'm playing this turn.
Right.
Or like Paladin,
minion.
I'm like, oh, it's turn 2. I have Hand of a Doll.
Yep.
Guess what I'm doing this? Well, I guess turn 2's there aren't that many options, but do you get the point? Like it's a lot of other decks. It's a lot more linear than Control Warlock, Priest, Control Warrior, and even mid-range decks or Combo Rogue or any number of things.
And again, there was nothing wrong with that. We talked about that at great length in your segment where we said there's nothing wrong with these things, but that's just what these type of things do.
That's why the win rates are the way that they are.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of why they are what they are.
Because the aggro decks, as much as people sometimes argue against it, aggro decks are just easier. It's why they're usually played more than control decks. It's why, unless it's a super heavy control meta, aggro or at least mid-range will always have a spot in the top 3 or 4 decks.
Yeah.
And it's why they will continue to have that going forward. It's simple to pick up and play. If you get a good hand, you just kind of steamroll your opponent, and there's not as much thinking that goes into it as a control deck. But the control decks, generally speaking, have a higher reward. Like, it's high risk, high reward. It takes a long time to learn how to play it, but once you do, I feel like a really good Priest player will be much higher ranked than a really good like Face Hunter player then, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, if you see...
You can't see my hands, but like the gap is like this for Hunter and it's high up, but the gap for Priest is super wide, but its high highs are lower or higher than Hunter's highs. It just starts off higher.
Yeah,
like
well, if you look...
floor is higher.
Yeah, if you
Hunter.
look at the meta, right, when you see like the meta reports and stuff, and it talks about like rank 1000 legend, it's one class, right? And then you'll see like some of the top 100 legend players are like, everybody's playing Priest. It's just Priest versus Priest. You're like, we're sitting down in legend in the higher, the upper echelon there, or lower tier, or whatever you want to call it, legend. And you're not seeing the same thing. Like, I don't see all the Priests because for that very reason, it changes that the propensity of like playing the decks well helps you win a lot more in the matchups that require you to play the decks well. It's not the deck itself that just makes you win. You understand, right? It's sort of the same thing. We're saying the same thing. It's like the decks just like, you'll win X amount of times with a specific deck, but the edges on Face Hunter are smaller than they are on a Priest if it's played well. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can, if you do something right with Face Hunter, well, of course you were supposed to do something right with Face Hunter because that's what you were supposed to do. Whereas if you do something right with Priest, you have a chance maybe to do something that was even more effective than just the move that you made on with Face Hunter. The decision making has changed. I don't think this is like we're talking about skill. skill. It's just about the chances to make better plays
and
exist.
just an understanding of the deck.
Yeah, and
I actually have an interesting point about that.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, I was watching No Hands Gamer try to learn OTK Demon Hunter. No Hands Gamer is one of the best Hearthstone players, arguably, like, in the world. And he was struggling at first to play OTK Demon Hunter, and it wasn't until he eventually, like, learned how to play the deck, learned the ins and outs, learned how much damage each combination of cards did, like with 1 Morg Artificer, 2 Morg Artificers, all that, that he really started performing well. It took him, like, a day or two of me tuning into his stream for him to, like, really get good at the deck.
Yeah.
And maybe I just saw, like, a bad 1 hour of each day where he was performing poorly, but then after, like, the 3rd or 4th day where I'd tune in for a little bit and do homework and just watch him in the background, he started doing significantly better. So it doesn't always have to do with skill. Like, one of the best players in the world could struggle with a deck until they're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Which just means, like, every harder deck that'll just take longer to understand will have a lower win rate, because as more people are experimenting with it, it's going to have a lower win rate.
it's such a great example. It's true. That's a very good example because, like you said, he's a great player and he has the ability to learn it. And that's the whole thing. It just take him a little less time to do so than others. But it just shows that skill is not a gift. Skill it can be
time.
an innate thing, though. There is some gift to it, but you could still earn skill, and skill takes practice, right? So
there was one other thing I wanted to say.
Tell me, yeah,
because I've heard people talk to me a lot about this, and I've seen a couple people talk to somebody like Rarin and even Regis and Dexter, and asking about like why our ranks are sometimes low being like bad, not low legend like 1, but like not good, dumpster legend. And they're like, you guys play the game a ton and you're all good players, why are your ranks sometimes lower than what they probably should be? And again, that goes to the familiarity with the deck. When I play 25 different decks a week, or I guess that was like when expansion drops, but I have 17 different decks I've tried recently, and there are a couple of more that I still want to try. I don't have the time to get familiar with the decks, right? And that's just a perfect example of how somebody who plays less but plays more of one particular deck will probably beat me in a matchup if I'm playing, a new version of Control OTK Warrior for the first time, and I'm like, I wonder if this combo will work. I have an idea in my head. I'm good at the game. I kind of know how to play the deck, but I don't have the familiarity of it. Like, I play hundreds of games, if not close to like 1,000 games every season, and the highest play rate deck I had was Hunter, and it was 80 games. So I guess it wasn't 1,000. I was trying to do math quickly, but the highest play rate deck was Hunter with about 80 to 85 games.
Yeah.
And fun fact, that was my highest win rate deck, right? That had like a 75% win rate. It's kind of weird that my highest play rate deck had the highest win rate because I was super familiar with it. Yeah. But the other decks like Warlock and Priest and Mage and Druid, which I played very infrequently because they didn't get views and I just don't like playing them and there weren't that many decks, are some of my lower win rates. They're actually my only 4 negative win rate decks. So it's just something that should be brought to people's attention. Like, it's not always skill, and the percentages and the win rates don't always make a difference, because I'm somebody who's actually bringing down the average win rate of some of these classes because I'm experimenting with stuff, which is weird to say, but like I'm bringing down the average win rate of like Priest and all that,
Interesting.
Because I'm just trying to experiment with stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to your stream plenty of times, and you're a very good player. I know you are, and I've seen you play. And the truth is that that's just something that you either choose to be top, 1,000 if that's your goal, then that's what it is. But you want to enjoy the game, so you do try different things.
So I'm gonna try a ton of different things, yeah.
And if I'm willing to bet, I know, and like people be like, oh, here he goes, kissing Ecore's ass, and that's not the case. I'm just saying it is. If you put your mind to it, to be like, say, in 3 months, I'm gonna hit top 100 legend, I think you could do it. But your path.
I've been top 100 legend before. I've been top 200 legend before as well. It's just
what I'm saying.
I didn't like the grind. I didn't
consistent like 100 every season.
Oh, you mean like every single time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I guess.
Yeah, your path would be so much different. Your path of streaming and how you're doing things
I would have to choose 3 or 4
different
decks.
Yes.
And just play those. And they'd have to be the best deck. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't take hey, try this Control Warlock deck on stream. I wouldn't take those suggestions. I'd be like, nope, I've got my Face Hunter, my Control Priest, my Aggro Shaman, Shaman and my Death Rattle Demon Hunter, and those are the only 4 decks I'm gonna play for the next 3 months until the new cards come out, and that's just not fun.
It's not fun for you, but it could be fun for someone else. And I'm not saying
That's true. And there's a difference, like what people find fun. People
it's just a different
might
path.
find the climbing fun.
It's a different goal. Now,
Yeah.
just to go on this, on my stream, somebody actually came to my channel and they said, "You're lazy" or something like that. And I'm like, you obviously don't watch my stream. Like literally, like anybody who watches, you see this. I spin a wheel with
to see what deck you play. I've seen that.
Yeah, just spin the wheel and I'll play whatever deck. And one of those decks in there is bad. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so for me, trying to get that bad win rate deck over is fun for me. I enjoy it because I'm not saying I'm a great player. I mean, I'm an okay player, whatever. But sometimes you can make bad decks win. And if that's what you choose to do or how you choose to play Hearthstone, you play it any way you want. If being top 100 rank is important to you, that's fine. And I think for some it's great. And it's interesting. It's awesome to see people who consistently make that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with playing the game you want to, the way you want to play it. I think it's sometimes like I wonder is when people say that to like Raren, Regis and stuff, some of them are just, damn, you're so much better player. Why? Right. But there's an element that some people are like, they're just being salty or mean. Is like, hey, is there a compliment in there somewhere?
Yeah, I'll get asked, how are you not legend yet? I hit legend day 2 of the expansion or day 2 of the season. And I'm like, well, what deck did you play? And they said, well, I one-tricked Face Hunter. Yeah. And I was like, right there, you played one deck only, so you got familiar with it, and it was top tier. What do you want from me?
Yeah, no, and that's fine. I mean, like, again, you can hit legend anytime you want. And like I said, I believe that you have the skill to hit legend top 100 3, 4, 6 months in a row. But if that's not what you want to do, that's fine. What does it matter? That's my parting words on that. And I think that if you put your mind to it, you could do it. But do you want to put your mind to it, then whatever. So I just think that
the point is, all this leads back to win rates don't mean everything. You could have different underlying variables, experimentation, bad decks, good decks, easier to learn, the meta at any given time. There are a lot of different things that could go into win rates. And it's not just like what I'm doing, but like what other people are doing as well.
Yeah. And
also people who play on mobile might disconnect and lower their win rates a little bit. Who knows?
Do you know what's funny? One last thing, and then we're going to get out of here. I basically was playing a game and I was dead to rights. So I'm up against a rogue and I'm like, oh man, it's like I'm just sitting there. I have a decent board out there, but whatever. So I go up to hit the concede button. As I'm going up to hit the concede button, I look on the screen. It says the internet is disconnected. It's like you're like disconnected from the game, right? Trying to reconnect. So I just closed out Hearthstone because I was like, whatever. I come back and it says, you won your last game.
What the heck?
I'm like, what happened? So we probably both disconnected.
But you restarted. And
I have no idea, but there's your luck. So there it is. So guys, we're gonna get on out of here. It's so great. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you get over to Ecore's channel and subscribe and like over there. We do the show for you guys. We love doing it, and I just want you to stay hype, and we'll see you next week.